Hey guys, welcome to Palak's World. So in this video, I'm going to be reviewing these watercolor brushes from Arteza. I'm going to leave an Amazon link in the description if you'd like to check them out. I've also got Arteza's watercolor paper, and I'm going to be trying these watercolor brushes on the watercolor paper as well as a separate painting to show and check out how they work. I'm going to be using two watercolors and watercolor pencils to demonstrate how these work. In the corner, I've given a few previews of what we're going to be doing in the video, so just some testing out, just getting used to the watercolor brushes, and then an actual painting of Ariel. This is actually, I haven't drawn this was pre-drawn on watercolor paper, and I'm just going to go ahead and paint it. So I've got three sizes in round and flat brushes, which is small, medium and large. This provides me to have a range of sizes, and it gives me more options to work with, so I can do small details and I can do larger backgrounds as well. So let me quickly explain how watercolor brushes work. So you've got the tip and you've got the barrel. In the barrel you've got space to fill in the water, and there's sort of like this button that you press to release the water from the barrel into the tip. That wets the tip, and you can just use that straight away without having to go back and forth and dip your brush in the water. This is particularly useful when you're doing watercolor pencil paintings. Right, so I filled in my watercolor brushes, and I'm just going to show you. The barrel opens up like this, and I'm not going to open it fully, otherwise the water will just spill out. I've already got my Winsor and Newton watercolors put into my palette, so I'm just going to be picking those out and painting on the paper. I'm going to show you how to release the water from the tip, from the barrel. So if you squeeze it, the water just drops out of the tip, as you can see. I'm also going to keep a tissue paper handy to dab off any excess water. Now in my palette I already had some of this grey colour mixed, and I'm just putting that down, and you can see that when you press the barrel, the water is released really quickly, so you need to learn to control this. Now the button thing, it's really stiff on mine, and that's a good thing for me because I hold my brushes from that position. If it was not stiff, I would accidentally press it down anytime, and that would make my paintings messy. So I found working with these a bit hard at first, not because they weren't good brushes, just because I wasn't sure how to control the water, how I was meant to be blending everything together. So I think practice would probably make me better at this, obviously. Now some of the skills like blending and even just putting the colour on the paper was a bit difficult for me because I'd never used these before, and I was afraid I was going to mess up all the time. So you just need to be a bit confident with yourself and just be sure of what you're doing with these. Otherwise I quite like these brushes, especially the tips, because they were really sturdy, and I feel like I could use them as normal brushes as well instead of water brushes. If I had to, I could just take them out and use them as normal brushes if I wanted to. I also realized that I could go really thin with these brushes, and with some of the brushes I could go really fine. So I found that was really good for the details if I didn't accidentally press the button that released the water. So I apologize if this video is going to be too long in the end, but you can always fast forward to see the things that you're a bit more interested in. So now I am going ahead and using this flat brush. So this one's a bit more stiff, probably because it's got a larger tip, and you can see that I just wet it Now I'm using this brilliant red colour here, and I'm just going to lay down a flat wash. And you can see that I'm not having to go ahead and keep dipping my brush into water to get that nice flat graded wash. I'm washing off the colour here, and I'm going to take the orange, and I'm just trying to do some different techniques, just trying to experiment and just sort of see what I can do with these brushes. The tissue was really handy because I felt like I needed to dab off excess water, otherwise the painting would get a bit messy. Now I'm going to be using watercolor pencils and seeing how well they work. So I decided to lay down a few colors in gradient for you, going from dark at the left side to the lightest that I could get with the pencil on the right side. So I did about 5 to 6 colors, and I tried to choose a range of colors to demonstrate how much pigmented they would remain after using the water on the colored pencils. Some of the colors I've also used in my actual painting that I'm going to do later, for example this peach that I've just done. I also chose to do slightly darker colors to see how they would react with the water as well. I'm now going ahead and using my brush, and I'm just going from the lightest part and I'm moving to the left towards the darkest part of the swatch. You can see how well the water brush has activated those pencils, and what I found was not many pencil marks were showing through the watercolor effect of the watercolor pencils, and my pencils remained really pigmented even after putting the water down. The watercolor brushes were just really easy to use with the pencils. Personally, I found it easier to use a Aqua brush rather than a normal brush with watercolor pencils. Even the darker colors came out really well. Obviously the lightest part of the darkest swatch wasn't very light because the colors are really dark. I think the best one was probably black because I loved the way it activated itself once you just put a drop of water on it. You can go a few times on the swatch to make sure that not many pencil marks show through, but you have to be really careful to make sure that a pool effect is not made. So I've got this printed picture of the Little Mermaid on watercolor paper, and this is really thick paper, so it's really good for watercolors. I've got loads and loads of Disney princesses and animal prints and different things that I use for practice, and I sometimes use them just for like trying out new techniques, and today I'm using it in this tutorial. So first I'm going to be using my watercolors, and I'm going to be using my watercolor pencils as well in this painting, again to just show you a bit of variety. So I'm going to take my Prussian blue color here, and I'm going to be creating a base layer of the Prussian blue for my shell. It's kind of like a conch shell that I'm going to be creating. I'm just laying down a base layer. It's really thin, and you can see I'm having some difficulties staying within the borders, but that's because I'm not able to like control the water that well, and I'm using a tissue to dab off some of the pooling that's happening around those areas there. I'm then going to go ahead and use a Viridian hue green, and I'm going to do this other shell in the same way. So I'm just going to do a really light layer of that. As you can see, I'm just dabbing some areas where I think there's too much water with a tissue to control the pigmentation, and I'm trying my best to stay within those borders. I accidentally took the wrong color here, so I just rubbed it with my tissue and I made one side a bit darker with my Viridian, like the bottom part was slightly darker, and the top was a bit lighter. So if you would like to see more videos like these, let me know in the comments below, or give me any suggestions of videos in the comments so I can think about making more videos like those. So now I'm going to go ahead with the Prussian blue and just add some shadows. So you can see that I went a bit over the top with that big shadow there. So what I'm doing here is picking up the colour and just dabbing it off on my tissue, and I'm just trying to blend it to the best of my ability. So I'm thinking of doing a tutorial where I sit down in real time and I show you how I sort of do a painting, and you can just sit down and do that painting with me if you wish. So I'm gonna think about doing that. If you're interested in videos like that, let me know in the comments below, and I will try to film videos like those as well in the future. Now I'm going to do the same thing in the other shell with a green, but this time I've added a bit of Payne's grey in the Viridian to make it slightly more dark. You can see that I'm adding a bit more shadows, and then I'm going to go ahead and blend it in. So now I'm going to take my watercolor pencils, and I'm just going to be first of all colouring in the fish, and the fish's name is Flounder, and I'm just going to be colouring in Flounder and then activating those places with the water. So this is a lemon yellow pencil. I'm then just using a darker blue, and I'm guessing that this is probably a cobalt or ultramarine blue. It looks a bit more like a cobalt blue, but it might even be a Prussian. So there's no colour names on these pencils, so I'm just kind of guessing what the colour is. But you can look for yourself on the net, Flounder colours, and you will probably find a good colour in your set to paint it with as well. So you can see that I'm now activating those shades, and that looks really good now, and it looks like real watercolor. I just used a sort of crimson pencil to do its tongue, but it's not that significant. You can't really even see it, so that wasn't really necessary, but I just thought that if you look really closely you could see that bit of that pink there. Now I'm doing Ariel's hair, and I'm using a really brilliant sort of red colour. So this one's called Brilliant Red, and I just put a bit of brilliant red around her face, just to make sure that the borders were really clear there, and then I'm just using water to spread the pigment around in her hair, and then in between I'm just dipping it into the paint, but mainly I'm spreading it with water. And what the effect that gives there is that there's lots of sort of light falling on her hair, and that makes it look slightly more three-dimensional, And then I go with lots of colour in the middle and spread with water again, so it gives really nice sort of shading in her hair without having to use much effort and like spend a lot of time on her hair. So this probably only took like 5 minutes of my time to do her hair, and it also created a really beautiful effect. To me, using water to spread in the hair when you're not trying to do much detailing actually makes the hair look pretty natural, especially when you're doing like cartoony things. You don't have to make the hair seem very realistic. So without using much effort, this is probably one of the ways that I love to do hair. And then wherever I can see sort of like fold lines, or where I know that her hair will probably have locks and things, I'm just going ahead and making it slightly more dark. You'll also notice that I'm just using one colour, and the water really helps me to create contrast. So I was really quite satisfied with the tips actually, because they were really nice, like they were really smooth and they felt so good in my hand when they were new, like brand new. So I was really satisfied with the feeling of the tip. So what I'm doing here is in the tail, I'm just applying water at first, and I'm going to be doing the wet on wet technique for this one. And just to make sure that everything gets blended really neatly, and again trying a variety of techniques. So in the tail, I'm using a Viridian hue again that I used for the shell. And on the very left side, I applied the paint, and then I'm just spreading the paint with my brush and the water on the paper. So I'm not actually applying paint on the right hand side, I'm only applying the paint on the left side and spreading to the right side. So this gives me a really nice sort of shadows, and it gives me sort of a sense of light in this. And the wet paper also, the pre-wet paper also helps with the blending. In this part of the tail, I used the Viridian green and Payne's grey, and I added a bit more Payne's grey to make it slightly more darker. So at the tips of the tail, I added darker one, and then I spread with the water, and this again gave it a sense of light and shadow. In the top part of the tail, I decided to use sap green to give a bit of variation to the colour of the tail. Instead of the whole painting just having 1 and 2 shades of green, I thought I should give it a bit more drama. So now I'm going to go ahead and do the skin, and I decided to do the skin with watercolour pencils. So for the skin, I'm going to be using the peach that we previously swatched, and I'm also going to using a darker brown to create the shadow for her skin. So as you can see, I'm flatly just colouring in the peach at the moment, and then I'm going to go ahead and with a slightly darker brown, I'm going to go ahead and add shadows with a burnt sienna sort of shade of pencil. So those are going to be my shadow shades. Then I'm going to take my water brush and just activate those colours as neatly as I can. This was a bit hard since I had to sort of blend 2 colours with my watercolour pencils, but the pencils really cooperated and it really helped me out. Now I'm going to go back to my watercolours really quickly, and I'm going to use this dioxazine purple colour, and I'm just going to do the left side darker and the right side lighter again. I'm spreading with water just like I did in the tail. Next I'm doing the eyes with a cerulean blue colour. So in the first eye I forgot to leave some light, which made the eye look pretty weird. And then I sort of dabbed it to rub it out, and then I did it again and I left some light in both eyes. I'm now taking some brilliant red and I'm doing her lips. So at first I was going to do it with watercolors, but then I thought I'd rather do it with the pencils because they were really sort of fine details, and this is the Crimson Lake pencil. I also did the tongue with that, and I activated the tongue, so I activated the colour in the tongue, but I didn't bother doing the lips because they were so thin. I went back to the peach to do the rest of her body. You can see that I'm just again flatly colouring but lightly. Okay, I'm flatly but lightly colouring with the peach using the same colour combination for the light and the shadow and the base layers really. Now I'm going ahead with the darker tones. I am painting under her chin and around where her arms are going back, and sort of some of her bones, her elbows, and some of her fingers as well. So to the best of my ability, I'm just visualizing some of the shadows that might have come on her sort of upper body. Then I'm going ahead again and activating those colors. So at the moment, Ariel's face looks really pale and it kind of like looks weird. It looks like she's about to be sick. She's sick or something, but we're gonna sort that out right now. So again, I'm taking the peach and I'm just flatly colouring in the face. So it's kind of like repetitive, but all arts are repetitive because you're kind of using the same techniques over and over again. Again, using the darker one. This time I did a bit more on the left because there's a bit of her hair's shadow. You have to do a bit of chin shadow, nose shadow. There's lots of shadows to think about on the face because there are a lot of features on the face as well. And then a bit under her hair as well because her hair would be giving off shadows as well. But I tried not to make it too dark, otherwise her face would look really weird as well. And I had to be really careful since I didn't want to accidentally go into her eyes or her lips. So that's the main thing painted, and that's when I realized that I didn't actually use my flat brushes in the whole of this. So I decided I would do a sort of quick background just to demonstrate how I would use the flat brushes, and I just try to incorporate it into the painting. So again, I'm just applying some water really roughly, not like trying to cover every single area, but just like making sure that the bigger areas have got water on them. So I was thinking about what to do for my background, and I thought that Ariel really wanted to be in the real world, right? Like our world, and our world has like skies and stuff, so maybe like draw Ariel and Flounder in the sky maybe. So I didn't really like think much about what the sky would look like, but I just did like small blobs kind of Payne's grey in the sort of areas that had a bit more space, and then I spread it with water I spread it with my brush and the water on the page, and I just sort of spread it out, blending it as I went along, just to make it slightly more smooth. So I wasn't really thinking much about what the background would look like. I just went into the little spaces of her hair where there would be some white if I hadn't done any background, and I didn't really think much about it. I just like went for whatever came into my mind. So yeah, so the background isn't that smooth. I didn't want to make it that smooth, I guess. But yeah, there it is. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. So just trying to like check out what sort of videos you guys like, so comment down below on whether or not you like these videos, or if you want me to make some different types of videos. So comment down below. I'm gonna leave loads and loads of things in the description box, so do check that out, and like this video, share it with your friends so others can enjoy it, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button to get more updates when I upload new videos, and I promise I'm gonna try to upload new videos really soon. So that's it from me, and I hope you have a lovely day.